Welcome to this lesson on how to plan for and conduct a job interview. Let's get started. The job interview plays a critical role in the selection process. The interview provides the selection committee with the opportunity to identify the applicant who possesses the best mix of knowledge, skills and abilities for the position. The role of the selection committee is to draw out from applicants the information the committee needs in order to make an assessment about each individual's potential performance in the job. The selection process can be helped considerably by careful preparation for the interview, creating the right interview environment, asking appropriate questions and concluding the interview well. In this unit, we will look at managing the interview process. Interviewing techniques. Prior to the interviews taking place, members of the selection committee should meet to discuss the time, date and location for the interviews. In determining the interview schedule, selection committee members should consider the following key points. The length of the interviews will vary, depending on the level of the position, but should be the same for each applicant. Sufficient time should be allocated to enable applicants to ask questions, to provide additional information, or to clarify any matters relating to the position that may not have been covered in the interview. Ideally, all interviews should be held on the same day. If this is not possible, then the interviews should be held over as short a period of days as possible. And finally, applicants should be given sufficient notice to attend the interview, ideally 1 week. The location for the interview, a private office or room, should be accessible and be chosen to ensure privacy. A suitable separate waiting area for applicants should be provided. In the interview room, chairs and tables should be arranged to make the committee members and applicant feel comfortable. If additional forms of assessment are to be used, for example tests, seminars or presentations, the appropriate arrangements should be made, such as venue and equipment bookings. Shortlisted applicants should ideally be given at least 1 week's notice of interview arrangements, and provided with advance notice, if they are required to give a presentation, or to undertake some other activity as part of the selection process, for example a test. All employers are obliged to make appropriate and reasonable adjustments that will enable applicants with disabilities to participate in the interview process. In many cases you may not need to modify your current interviewing practices. Some adjustments may include adjusting the interview time, so a candidate with mobility impairment doesn't have to travel during peak hour. Holding the interview in an accessible location, that is in a room on the ground floor without steps, or in a room accessible by lift. Providing any reading materials electronically, so a person with vision impairment can access the information. Allowing the candidate to come with a support worker, or aide. Or providing alternatives to a standard interview, for example conducting the interview by telephone. Make sure you and any colleagues on the interview panel prepare for the interviews thoroughly. Here is a checklist to help you plan properly. Letters to applicants must be correctly addressed and contain accurate information. Applicants should be asked to ring to confirm their attendance at interviews. Make any reasonable adjustments, if requested to do so. Communication must be kept confidential. If you need to ring the applicant at work, give your name, but not your company name. And, front of house staff should have a list of interviewees' names. Make sure you and any colleagues on the interview panel prepare for the interviews thoroughly. Here is a checklist to help you plan properly. And here are some additional points to consider. Refreshments and company reading materials should be provided while interviewees are waiting. Book a suitable meeting room, where you won't be interrupted. Book time in your diary. The panel members should read the candidate's details, and prepare some general and specific questions in advance. One of the first questions to be addressed in starting the hiring process is, who will do the screening, interviews, and hiring? It's usually a good idea to make the process a group effort, for several reasons. An interview panel can significantly reduce the possibility of individual preferences or prejudices influencing the hiring process. Additionally, an interview panel will also enable you to secure a more objective selection decision and ensure transparency. Given these reasons, it's generally wise to try to choose a representative panel, including the position's supervisor and/or the director, if he's specifically responsible for hiring, a manager from another department who interacts with the role, and one representative from the Human Resources Department. It's probably desirable to keep the panel to 4 or fewer, since a larger number can be seen as intimidating and is difficult to schedule. It is important that interviews be undertaken in a relaxed and pleasant environment. Better quality information can be obtained by trying to create a rapport between the applicant and the committee. Remember that the interview is a two-way process, and it is not just about the employer determining whether the applicant is the best fit for the role. The applicant is also deciding whether the role is the best fit for what they are looking for as the next career step. Here are some steps to take. At the beginning of the interview, the chair should greet and welcome the applicant and thank them for attending. Introduce the interview panel members and explain their roles. Explain the sequence of the interview. This will most likely consist of questions from each panel member, with an opportunity for applicants to ask any questions at the end. Explain that the interview panel will be taking notes. And then provide an overview of the job, organization, workplace. Invite the applicant to explain why they want the position and why they feel they are best suited. This should encourage applicants to talk about their motivation and strengths. Ask each applicant the predetermined questions. Ask supplementary questions to clarify or seek further information. Probe for specific examples and pursue vague or incomplete answers. And ask open-ended questions. Open questions are the basic tool of interviewing. They are called open questions because they open up the discussion with information and lead on to more questions. Once you have asked an open question, let the person talk while you keep quiet and listen. You need only interrupt with another question if the interviewee is going off the point or not giving you the information you need. Here are useful words to encourage a candidate to talk: who, where, when, what, why, and how. Closed questions are the opposite of open questions. Their very structure limits the answer to yes or no, or a specific piece of information. Some examples include: do you like chocolate? Were you born in December? Is it 5 o'clock yet? Although closed questions tend to shut down communication, they can be useful if you are searching for a particular piece of information or winding a conversation down. In addition to the basic open and closed questions, there is also a toolbox of probing questions that we can use. These questions can be open or closed, but each type serves a specific purpose. These include clarification questions, completeness and correctness questions, determining relevance questions, drilling down questions, and summarizing questions. Another type of open question is a probing question. By probing for clarification, you invite the other person to share more information so that you can fully understand their message. Clarification questions often look like this. Please tell me more about. What did you mean by? Or, what does it look like? By probing for clarification, you invite the other person to share more information so that you can fully understand their message. Clarification questions often look like this. Please tell me more about. What did you mean by? Or what does look like? Any of the 5 senses can be used here. Also, ask behavioral questions, which encourage applicants to explain past situations where they have applied their skills. Encourage the applicant to describe the situation, task, action they took and the result, using the STAR acronym. Here are some examples of using the STAR approach. Another technique to use is the question funnel, which helps you drill down and get to the detail of the information you need. Start by asking an open question about a particular matter you want to explore. Get more detail by probing, using as many open questions as you need. Summarize to check your understanding. Close by asking a sweeper questions. Ask, is there anything you'd like to tell me about this matter that I haven't asked you about? At the end of the interview, explain to the applicant that you are reaching the end of the interview. Check if the selection committee members have any other questions. Ask the applicant if they wish to provide further information that may not have emerged during the course of the interview. Also, ask the applicant if they have any questions they would like to ask. Then, collect any documentation required from the applicant, for example certificates, transcripts, publications, proof of visa or work entitlements. Confirm that referees can be contacted. Then explain what will happen next, and when they can expect to be informed about the outcome of the selection process. Finally, thank applicant for their time and interest in the organization. No employment commitment should be entered into or implied by the interview panel members, and no commitment should be given on any matter involving a variation to the normal conditions of employment. At the end of each interview, the interview panel members should make a brief individual assessment of the applicant. The telephone can also be used to conduct interviews, and this is a common practice if candidates live at such a distance that attending a face-to-face interview would be impractical. It can also be used to question the candidate to determine his or her level of interest in the position prior to a formal face-to-face interview. Obtain additional information not presented in the resume. It can also be used to gain an impression of the candidate's communication skills, or decide whether to invite the candidate for a personal interview. And here are some technical considerations when conducting phone interviews. Ensure any outside noise or potential interference is blocked out. Sit close enough and face the speakerphone directly to ensure you are heard clearly. Regularly check with the interviewee to ensure they can still hear you clearly. Remember, you are relying on nonverbal cues, so care needs to be taken to ensure the applicant is clear about what is being asked of them and who is directing the conversation. Also, you may not be able to connect instantly. Perhaps arrange to telephone the applicant a few minutes before to make sure you have contact. The same applies for external committee members who need to be connected via a conference call. If you plan and manage your interviews carefully, you should be able to find someone who's a great match for both the position and the organization. In addition, you can make friends for the organization by your handling of the process and your treatment of unsuccessful applicants. There are a number of activities to complete for this unit. Take the time to complete these in your manual. In this way, you will better learn from and retain the knowledge covered in this unit. Many thanks for watching this lesson. Want to learn more? Click on our website to view our range of courses on human resources management.